The $887 billion food and agriculture industry depends on you never learning what I am about to show you. Every month, the average American family spends $412 at grocery stores and $160 at garden centers buying what they were told they cannot grow themselves. But 350,000 Amish farmers across 32 states have been feeding their families completely off their own land for over 200 years. They have never filed a single subsidy application, never bought a bag of commercial fertilizer, never needed a grocery store loyalty card. Not one. Number 20, sheet mulching. Eli Zook laid cardboard flat across his Lancaster County soil in 1971 and covered it with straw. His neighbors assumed he was composting wrong. He was doing something far more deliberate, smothering the weed seed bank underneath while feeding the ground on top simultaneously with zero purchased input. The Rodale Institute in Kutztown, Pennsylvania, documented a 60% reduction in weeding labor on plots using this method across trials that same decade. One afternoon of layering replaced an entire season of pulling. The soil underneath improved while the work disappeared. Once the surface is managed, what lives inside the ground becomes the next variable worth understanding. Number 19, earthworm cultivation. A handful of soil from an Amish farm in Holmes County, Ohio in 2009 contained 3 times the earthworm density of the conventional farm directly across the road. Ohio State University Extension agents measured it. The conventional farmer was spending $340 a season on synthetic nitrogen to compensate for biology his tillage had already destroyed. The Amish farmer spent nothing because the worms were doing the amendment work every night without wages. 1 acre of that ground moves and aerates more material per night than a commercial tiller burning diesel for a full day. The biology was the input. And it is worth knowing that number 16 takes this same principle and turns up the heat to 140 degrees to get a result the worm population alone cannot achieve. Water management was the next piece the Amish solved, and their answer required no pump and no power line. Number 18, passive water harvesting with swales. In the summer of 2012, a mid-Atlantic drought cut conventional farm yields in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania by an average of 40%. A 47-acre Amish operation on the same ridge lost nothing: no irrigation system, no well pump, no emergency water bill. Shallow trenches cut along the natural contour of the land slowed rainfall just long enough to push it into the ground before it ran downhill and disappeared. A storm drain works in reverse. It moves water away from where you need it as fast as possible. A swale does the opposite. The rain stayed on the property. Knowing when that stored water needed to reach each crop required a different skill entirely, and it cost nothing to learn. Number 17, finger test moisture reading. Jacob Beeler of Mifflin County never owned a moisture meter. 2 inches of index finger pushed into the soil each morning told him everything a $40 sensor would have, and the USDA agreed in writing. Their 1936 soil management field guide recommended the feel method as more reliable than early mechanical meters for clay loam soils across the mid-Atlantic region. The sensor fails in year 2. The finger never needs calibration and never needs a battery. $0 spent on a diagnostic the USDA was already publishing 87 years ago. Building nutrients accurately required knowing what the soil already contained, and the Amish composting system built that supply from scratch every season without purchasing a single input. Number 16, thermal composting. Most people pile kitchen scraps and wait for something to happen. Samuel Graber of Shipshewana, Indiana, stacked his in deliberate carbon to nitrogen ratios and watched the interior hit 140 degrees Fahrenheit within 4 days. That heat killed weed seeds and pathogens that a cold pile would have spread straight back into the garden. The Amish farm and house in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, has demonstrated this layered method publicly since 1955, producing finished amendment worth roughly $40 per cubic yard at current garden center retail pricing. Graber's cost was table scraps and spent plant material. Every cubic yard his pile finished was $40 that never reached a supplier. Dense planting was the next decision, and the geometry behind it doubled output from the same ground without adding a square foot. Number 15, intensive bed spacing. Gene Logsdon spent 3 days measuring Amish kitchen gardens in Holmes County, Ohio in 1994 and published what he found in The Contrary Farmer. Same soil, same seed varieties, same rainfall, double the yield per square foot compared to conventional row spacing on identical ground. Crops planted close enough that leaves touched at maturity shaded the soil surface, held moisture underneath, and closed off weed germination with no additional labor after planting. A standard 20 by 40 foot bed, managed this way, produced what a conventional row garden needed 80 feet to match. 2 plots worth of food from 1 plot worth of ground. Whether that density held together or collapsed entirely depended on which plants were placed next to each other. Number 14, companion planting with the 3 sisters. Corn, beans, and squash, planted together in a single Amish bed, solved 3 separate input problems with 1 decision. The corn gave the beans a structure to climb. The beans fixed nitrogen directly into the soil the corn was pulling from. The squash leaves covered the ground and blocked competing growth before it started. The Oneida Nation Agricultural Program in Wisconsin published yield data in 2017 confirming measurable nitrogen deposits, ground cover, and vertical structure across test plots using this combination, all without purchased inputs. 3 line items removed by 1 planting decision. Controlling what arrived on those plants from outside the bed required a completely different approach, and the Amish version cost roughly $3 per season. Number 13, trap cropping. A border row of blue Hubbard squash planted around an Amish market garden in Chester County, Pennsylvania in 2001 filled with cucumber beetles within 2 weeks. The farmer waited until the border was dense with them, then destroyed the row, population and all. The Rodale Institute documented this method across southeastern Pennsylvania Amish plots in 2003, measuring a 78% reduction in cucumber beetle pressure without a single pesticide application. A conventional spray program on the same acreage ran an estimated $400 per season. The Amish cost was 1 row of sacrificial seed worth roughly $3. The field perimeter handled pressure at the boundary level, but the Amish built a second layer of defense further out that required planting only once and never needed replacing. Number 12, hedgerow planting. 4 miles of mixed native shrubs and trees border the Amish farm surveyed by University of Vermont researchers in Washington County, New York in 2011. Those hedgerows harbored predatory insects, slowed wind across the field surface, and physically interrupted the migration of new pest populations onto the property before they reached the trap crop border. Inside hedgerow-bordered fields, aphid populations ran 34% lower than on open-edge fields in the same study area. 1 planting event, no annual budget, no maintenance contract. A conventional grower managing the same pest pressure chemically spent an estimated $200 per season on the same acreage. The perimeter paid for itself in year 1 and ran free every year after. The next constraint the Amish solved was the calendar, and their answer to a short season required no heating system and no utility connection. Number 11, cold cellar season extension. The Amish community in Geauga County, Ohio, has used hand-dug root cellars continuously since first settlement in 1886. Earth holds temperature the way a vacuum flask holds heat. Not perfectly, but consistently enough that a properly dug cellar maintains 32 to 40 degrees Fahrenheit year-round with no electricity, no refrigerant, and no utility bill. A family storing correctly in a cold cellar stretches a single fall harvest of root vegetables 4 to 6 months into the following year, eliminating the grocery produce budget for that entire window. The Amish extended the harvest backward with the cellar. Extending it forward cost under $200 in materials and a weekend of labor, and the design had been circulating through Amish communities for 2 decades before anyone formally documented it. Number 10, low-cost hoop house construction, bent electrical conduit and greenhouse plastic. That is the complete material list. An Amish grower in Elkhart County, Indiana was producing lettuce in February using this structure through the mid-1980s, a design the National Sustainable Agriculture Information Service formally documented in 2001 after it had already been in use for nearly 20 years, 8 to 12 additional weeks of growing on both ends of the calendar. At current grocery prices, that extension eliminates an estimated $300 to $500 in annual produce spending from the household budget for a total build cost under $200. The season stretched in both directions for less than the average American spends on 2 grocery runs. Seeds were the next input the Amish drove toward zero, and the math there compounded differently than anything else on this list. Number 9, open pollinated seed saving. A seed variety saved from the strongest plant in a Lancaster County Amish garden in 1890 may still be producing food from that same family's ground today. The Seed Savers Exchange in Decorah, Iowa has preserved more than 600 distinct Amish seed lines since its founding in 1975, many performing at commercial yield levels in their home regions after generations of local selection. Year 1, a family buys seed once. By year 5, their saved stock is better adapted to their specific soil and microclimate than anything in a catalog, and the annual cost has reached zero. The same zero-input compounding logic the Amish applied to seeds, they applied to livestock feed as well, and the multiplication ratio there was 8 to 1. Number 8, fodder sprouting. A grain bin in Arthur, Illinois held the winter feed budget for an Amish livestock operation in 2004. Not as dry feed to be poured into a trough, as a multiplication system waiting to be activated with water in 6 days of patience. Soaking grain seeds in shallow trays triggers germination and produces green fodder at a ratio of 8 pounds of nutrient-dense feed per 1 pound of dry grain input. The University of Illinois Extension documented this practice across Amish operations in Arthur that year and estimated it reduced winter feed costs by 60 to 70% depending on herd size. 8 to 1 is a ratio no feed store can match on any product. Keeping those same animals healthy without a pharmaceutical bill is where number 7 becomes the most inconvenient entry on this entire list for the companies that supply conventional livestock operations. Number 7, herbal and fermented animal health management. 40 Amish farms in Holmes County, Ohio. One survey conducted by Ohio State University College of Veterinary Medicine in 2006. Antibiotic usage across all 40 farms ran 91% lower than the national livestock average. The inputs were fermented apple cider vinegar in drinking water, garlic in feed rations, and herbal pasture plantings of comfrey and yarrow throughout grazing areas. The national average commercial operation spent an estimated $47 per animal unit on antibiotics alone that year. The Amish cost across the same category was vinegar and garlic. A digestive system maintained correctly defends itself the way a well-designed drainage channel handles a heavy rain, not by fighting the water, but by giving it nowhere to pool. Manure from those healthy animals fed the next free input in the system, and the timing of its application was worth 22% more nitrogen per acre. Number 6, managed manure application timing. Penn State Extension published a comparison study in 2008 tracking nitrogen uptake on Amish managed fields against conventional neighbors in the same county. Same source material, same field types. The Amish applied manure in fall after harvest, allowing nitrogen to stabilize in the soil before spring planting. The conventional farms applied it at planting when volatilization and runoff losses were highest. The Amish plots showed 22% higher nitrogen uptake from an input that cost both farmers nothing to produce. A 22% efficiency gain on a zero-cost input is not a marginal improvement. It is the equivalent of finding $22 sitting uncollected in every $100 transaction you were already running. Water delivery to those same fields was the next system the Amish ran for free, powered by nothing but elevation and rainfall. Number 5, gravity-fed irrigation from elevated cisterns. 2 barn rooftops in Sugar Creek, Ohio, collected enough rainfall to fill a 10,000-gallon cistern sitting on a hillside above the fields. Mother Earth News documented the operation in 1998. 4 acres of market garden irrigated entirely by gravity through lines running downhill from the cistern to the beds. No pump, no pressure tank, no fuel cost, no maintenance contract. The operating cost of that system, once built, was $0 per season for as long as rain continued to fall on the roof. A solar panel converts sunlight into electricity at roughly 20% efficiency and still carries a purchase price. A cistern on a hill converts rainfall into irrigation at 100% efficiency, and the hill was already there. Tools carried the same logic, and the Lancaster estate auction told the full story of what that logic looked like across 140 years. Number 4, tool maintenance and intergenerational inheritance. At an Amish estate auction in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania in 2019, buyers assessed hand tools dated to the 1880s as field-ready. 140 years of daily farm use, regular sharpening, wooden handle replacement, and conditioning with linseed oil kept the metal sound across 4 generations. A tool replaced every 10 years at $15 costs $210 across that same 140-year window. The original tool, maintained, cost 75 cents in period pricing plus a few dollars in oil and handles across the entire span. The arithmetic on keeping things is almost always more favorable than the arithmetic on replacing them, and the Amish understood that before the hardware store existed. The system that coordinated when every tool got used and when every seed went in ran on a clock no company has ever been able to sell a replacement for. Number 3, the Lunar planting calendar. Root crops go in during the descending moon. Above ground crops go in during the ascending phase. Amish farmers have aligned their planting calendar to lunar cycles since before the American Revolution, not as tradition passed down without examination, but as a yield management practice with a measurable record. The Research Institute of Organic Agriculture in Frick, Switzerland completed a 10-year trial ending in 2012 that found statistically significant yield differences in potato and carrot crops planted on lunar timing versus randomized control plots. The clock costs nothing. It has been running longer than any seed company has existed. An Amish farmer reading that calendar in 1780 was using timing data a Swiss research institute confirmed 232 years later. The soil biology that responds to that timing can also be read directly by hand in 30 seconds. And that diagnostic is the second most important skill on this entire list. Number 2, biological soil reading. Press a handful of soil and hold it to your nose. Dark color, earthy smell, visible fungal threads, and earthworms present at 6 inches means the system is working. pale, dry, and odorless means an input decision needs to change before the next planting. The USDA Natural Resources Conservation Service began formally promoting sensory soil assessment through the Haney Soil Health Methodology in 2015. Amish communities in Pennsylvania and Ohio were running the same diagnostic by hand decades earlier, adjusting inputs based on what they smelled and felt before any lab existed to confirm it. A standard soil test costs $25 to $40 and returns results in 2 weeks. The hand diagnostic takes 30 seconds and costs nothing. Every input decision across this entire countdown becomes more accurate when the soil is read correctly first. The practice that makes all of it possible has never appeared in a product catalog because it cannot be packaged. Number 1, the closed-loop farm system. David Klein farmed 120 acres in Fredericksburg, Ohio, and wrote about it in his 1990 book, Great Possessions. He described a farm that feeds itself before it feeds anyone else. That sentence is the architecture of the entire system. The compost feeds the soil grows the fodder feeds the animals produce the manure feeds the soil again. Every output becomes the next input, and the purchase points disappear one by one until the loop closes completely and there is no gap left for a vendor to occupy. The $887 billion industry does not fear sheet mulching. It does not fear lunar calendars or hoop houses standing alone. What it cannot price its way into is the closed loop, because a closed loop has no entry point. You do not need all 20 to start. Plant one bed correctly, save the seed from its strongest plant. Feed the spent material back into the soil. The loop teaches itself once the first connection is made. That is how 350,000 people feed themselves without a subsidy, a loyalty card, or a single bag of purchased fertilizer, not by mastering all of it at once, by closing one loop and letting it pull the next one shut.